page 170 of the Universal Prayers, and the English translation is on page 171. This is from the Shivamahimna Stotram. Om Namo Nedishthaya Priyadavadavishthaya cha Namo Namah Kshodishthaya Smarahar Mahishthaya Namaha Namo Varshishthaya Trinayana Yavisthaya cha Namo Namah Sarvasmai Te Tadidamati Sarvaya cha Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Salutations to you, O Lord unattached, who are nearest and yet farthest. Salutations to you, O destroyer of animal passions, who are the smallest of the small and yet the greatest of the great. Salutations to you, O possessor of the highest wisdom, who are ancient and yet ever youthful. Salutations to thee, who art all things, seen and unseen, and yet beyond them all. Om peace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace in our hearts, peace and joy in our hearts, Adhyatmika Shanti. Peace and harmony amongst all beings, Adi Bhautika Shanti. And peace be everywhere in nature, Adi Daivika Shanti. Last time, we completed our study of one section of the second chapter, ending with shloka number 53. The second chapter has three major parts. The first part beginning from verse number 11, that deals with the Jnana Yoga, the nature of the self, Atman. The Atman has no birth, it has no death, it is immortal, it is infinite, it is eternal, it is pure consciousness, does not undergo any change, etc. Verse number 20, for example, in second chapter, Najayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavitava na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam purano Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. That verse summarizes the nature of the self, Atman, which is the theme of all the Upanishads. The second part deals with the essence of Karma Yoga. The two main verses in this section are in second chapter, verses 47-48, where Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that we have no control over the outcome of our work, and yet we have to do the best possible effort we have to put forth under the conditions in which we have to work. We don't have control over the outcome of our work because other factors besides our effort come into play and they shape the outcome. So what is to be done? The most important instructions to us are given in verse number 48, second chapter, where Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Yogastha kuru karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya. All your duties as a yogi would do, yoga, karma yoga. How? It involves two aspects. First is Sangam Tyaktva, giving up attachment to karma and karma phala. Karma is to be done, but we should not think it is my karma or somebody else's karma. It does not belong to anybody. It has to be done. And karma is an opportunity for spiritual progress. If karma is done in the proper way with the proper attitude, it shows us the way to freedom. If karma is with the improper attitude, then it binds us more deeply into the samsara, in the world of transmigration. So karma is neutral, depends upon how we perform the karma. If you perform karma as an offering to God, as a worship of God, as a service of God, as a servant, then it will make our minds free from attachment and selfishness. And a free mind is conducive to pure devotion and self-knowledge. If you perform karma with a selfish attitude, this is my karma, I am doing it for some benefit, I want to benefit from the result of this karma, attachment to karma phala, then it binds us deeper into the realm of ignorance. So the proper attitude towards karma has to be cultivated. This topic of karma comes in many more chapters. We'll come back to this chapter of Karma Yoga in remaining several chapters. So we'll now move on to the third part of the second chapter, which is a very interesting and important part, beginning with verse number 53. 53 is the Arjuna's question. Arjuna asks a question now. His question is, if a person has realized his true divine nature, giving up body consciousness, become free from ignorance that I am the body, I am the mind, I am the senses, and his awareness is established in the self, in the Atman within, then how such a person behaves? How can we recognize such a person? What are his characteristics? What are his qualities? How can we say a person is realized? Sita Prajna. And what are his qualities? This is Arjuna's question. Let me read verse number 53. This is the beginning of the last part of the second chapter, most important part. 54, Arjuna's question. Sita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sitadi kim prabhasheta imasita vrajeta kim. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna's question. Sita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sitadi kim prabhasheta imasita vrajeta kim. So Arjuna asked Bhagavan Sri Krishna, how can a person of stable wisdom, Sita Prajna, how does he live? O Krishna, how does a man of such a Sita Prajna, steadfast intelligence, speak? How does he speak? How does he behave? How does he move about? How does he deal with life, with action? These are the questions. Now, from verse number 55 onwards until the end of chapter, the chapter has 72 shlokas. From 55 to 72, they contain Sri Krishna's answer to this question, description of a Sita Prajna. These verses from 55 to 72 are one of the most important part of Bhagavad Gita. They have two aspects. One aspect is they describe a Sita Prajna. We'll see what a Sita Prajna is. What are the qualities of a Sita Prajna? How does he behave? How does he act? How does he react to experiences in life? Description of a Sita Prajna. If somebody has some of these qualities that Sri Krishna is going to describe, then we can recognize that person as a Sita Prajna and we can emulate that person. That is one function of this list of qualities from 55 to 72. Description of a Sita Prajna. But equally important, maybe more important than that, is that they are a prescription for all of us who are aspiring to become Sita Prajnas, These qualities are a prescription, things to do. We have to practice these qualities that is the prajna has for each one of us to become a Chitta Prajna ourselves. We should not remain content by knowing what a Chitta Prajna is, but we should become, each one of us must become a Chitta Prajna. In this life, we should strive to achieve that goal in this life. So how can we do that one? How can we, all of us, become Chitta Prajna? The answer is by practicing all the virtues that Sri Krishna is going to describe in the verses 55 to 72. At least many of those we have to practice. So these are the description of Chitta Prajna that Sri Krishna gives in 55 to 72 have two functions: a description function, describing a Chitta Prajna, and a prescription function, prescribing virtues that we all have to practice. So this is very important section, and we'll study them in some detail. So coming back to verse number 54, Sri Krishna, Arjuna asks, who is a Chitta Prajna? What are the qualities? First of all, we have to understand what is the meaning of the word Chitta Prajna. What does it mean? When I say Chitta Prajna, what does it mean? Shankara describes Chitta Prajna in this way in the commentary. Aham asmi param brahma iti prajna yasya sa Chitta Prajna. Prajna means consciousness or awareness. One whose awareness is firmly established in his divine self, Aham Brahmasmi. Upanishad says that we are all divine beings, each one of us. Swamiji also famously said that each soul is potentially divine. We are all the divinity, but in potential form. The divinity in each one of us is there, but remains hidden in the potential form. We are not aware of it at the present stage. But the goal of life is to become aware of our divine nature and then experience our divine nature. Experience is the important. So a person who is experiencing his divine nature, giving up the ignorance that he is the body and the mind, such a person is a Chitta Prajna. Aham asmi param brahma iti prajna yasya saha Chitta Prajna. A person whose awareness is firmly established in this divine self. Such a person is a Chitta Prajna. That means a knower of knowledge, a knower of self-knowledge. Brahma Jnani is a Chitta Prajna. So the remaining verses are description of such a person. And we also have to practice as many of these virtues of a Chitta Prajna that Sri Krishna is going to describe from 55 onwards. So let us begin with verse number 55. Sri Krishna's answer to Arjuna's question. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parthamano Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sthita Prajnastadochyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parthamano Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sthita Prajnastadochyate. In this verse, Shloka 55, Sri Krishna describes two qualities of a Chitta Prajna. Many more are described in the remaining verses. Two important qualities of a Chitta Prajna. The first thing that a Chitta Prajna does is to conquer all his desires. The first line says, Yada Sarvan Manogatan Kaman Prajahati Tada Chitta Prajna iti Uchyate. Yada means when Sarvan all Manogatan Partha Manogatan Kaman. When a person can conquer all the desires that arise in one's mind. In our mind, numerous desires arise. Some good, some bad, some very bad, some very good. If a person can conquer all the desires that arise in the mind, Such a person is a Chitta Prajna. So this takes us to the topic of desire, how desire arises in the mind, how to deal with them, are there good desires, bad desires, how to distinguish between them. All those details will come, but we will study those details gradually in the remaining verses. So first quality of Chitta Prajna is one who has conquered the desire. Ordinarily, a person, what does an ordinary person do? When a desire comes, impulsively immediately tries to fulfill the desire. But that is not the right thing to do. When a desire arises in the mind, first of all, we should pause and ask a few questions. This desire has come. What kind of desire is it? Is it good desire, bad desire? Is it a dharmic desire or adharmic desire? In the 7th chapter, Sri Krishna is going to say, adharmic desires are to be firmly rejected. Sloka number 11 in chapter 7, 7:11, easy to remember. There, Sri Krishna says, there are two kinds of desires. Some are dharmic desires, some are adharmic desires, good desires, bad desires. We are doing Sloka 55 in the 2nd chapter. So we have to distinguish between the two kinds of desires. And if the desire is adharmic, adharmic means a desire that does not conform to dharma. If such a desire is fulfilled, it creates a lot of trouble without thinking what kind of desire it is. That has to be identified and conquered. If desire is a dharmic desire, good desire, for example, the desire to become a better person, a desire to get more devotion to God, a desire to do something good to other people, to needy people, to society, a desire to acquire knowledge and devotion. These are all good desires. They have to be encouraged and they have to be fulfilled. Bad desires, we don't have to give desires. We know what a bad desire is. If you fulfill them, it will take us down and counterproductive to our spiritual life. So, when a person can conquer all the desires, such a person is called Chitta Prajna. The topic of desire will come in much more detail in the subsequent verses 62, 63 and other chapters. So we'll discuss more about the desire, more details now. For now, let us say the first quality of a Chitta Prajna is one who can conquer, that means deal properly with all the desires that arise in the mind. Sarvan manogatan parthan ya prajahati sa Chitta Prajna. One quality. The second quality of Chitta Prajna is mentioned in the second line. Very important quality. Second quality of Chitta Prajna. Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. Tosha or santosha means contentment. Tushta means a person who is content. How does a Chitta Prajna remains content? Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. He remains content within the self, with the self. That means for contentment or happiness, a person does not look for outside objects. This is a very important quality, to be content within oneself and not to depend upon outside objects and experiences for contentment. This will also come in great detail in subsequent verses. An ordinary person, to find happiness, seeks outside in sense objects, sensory pleasures, in possessions, in property, acquiring money and wealth, acquiring name and fame, and enjoying a good health and food and clothing and dress and cars and money and relationships and sensory pleasures. All these things, people look for happiness. Those are the wrong places to look for happiness. They don't give us satisfaction at all. For some time, they may appear to give satisfaction, but eventually, all those outside sense objects and experiences and relationships, they will only end up in giving us more disillusionment and unhappiness. The disadvantages of seeking happiness in outside objects, experiences, and positions is nicely described in one verse in chapter 5, verse number 22. That chapter 5, verse 22 will come many times. So we might as well make a note of it. Chapter 5, verse 22, Sri Krishna says, the severe disadvantages of looking for happiness in the outside world, which is where most people look for happiness. Siddhaprajna does not do that. He looks for happiness inside. Inside, all happiness is within us. Infinite joy is within us. Sachidananda is our true nature. Upanishad Vedanta says. If you can only discover our true nature, we will enjoy infinite bliss that cannot be even described in words. Infinite bliss. Sri Ramakrishna used to go into Samadhi frequently, many times a day sometimes, and he would enjoy so much bliss that the human frame could not even contain that bliss. The whole body would freeze. Breathing would stop and all movement will stop and no blinking. Such experience is so intense that we cannot withstand that. That is all hidden within us, each one of us. Every one of us without exception has that Satchidananda within us, embedded in us, but in potential form. We are not experiencing it. The Siddhaprajna is one who is experiencing his divine nature, enjoying infinite bliss, indescribable bliss that nothing can in this world can give. So he has no use for worldly happiness. There's nothing that that can increase his happiness, which is already coming from within. So he does not reach out for sense objects, property, possessions, money, wealth, and fame, sensory pleasures for happiness. Such a person who finds infinite joy within oneself, Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha, not looking for happiness in the outside objects which they cannot deliver. They promise, but they cannot deliver happiness. They only end up in making us unhappy. The severe disadvantages of looking for happiness in outside objects, experiences, relationships, and property, etc., are described in 522. I'll chant you verse 522 and we'll come back to this verse again and again several times. There Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, chapter 5, verse 22, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayo naya evate adyantavantah kaunteya nate suramate buddha. Samsparshaja bhoga means enjoyment coming from sense objects. Sparsha means contact with sense objects. Any happiness that comes from outside with by contact with sense objects. Sense object can be another person, can be one's own child or grandchild, can be a position, power, fame, something intangible, money, property. Any of these are sense objects. Any happiness that comes from such sense objects, they are samsparshaja bhogaha dukkayonaya evate. Eventually they cause only dukkha. Initially they show some happiness, but then we reach out for it, then it shows, very soon it reveals that it is a source of unhappiness only. There's no happiness in the outside world. Happiness is all within ourselves. We have to discover that one. Look for happiness where it can be really found, where it really is. We are looking in the wrong places where it cannot be found. And the severe disadvantage of such happiness coming from outside world is they are temporary, fleeting. For a short time only they will give happiness. Lot of work has to be done before, then little bit happiness, and then lot of disadvantage. Dukkha yonaya evate, they cause only dukkha in the end. Because they are adyantavantaha, they have a beginning and an end. Short time, short duration happiness will be there. Nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means the buddhiman, wise person. The wise person does not depend upon, does not take any delight in the outside objects. You can see such people in such examples in the eyes of great people. Take for example, the life of Ramana Maharshi. Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, all those are our ideals in this present age. They were very happy people. They were not unhappy at all. Where did their happiness come from? Not from outside objects, not from property, not from money. So Ramakrishna could not even touch money. Even if he touched money, his whole hands would freeze and he would feel enormous pain. He did not have any property. How much property Ramana Maharshi had? He used to live in a cave, and the whole property he owned was only one loincloth, one kaupinam, langot. That's all. That's the only property he had. Only one, not even two. Every morning in the stream, he would take bath at the top of the hill, wash the loincloth, put it back on his body. That was the only property. No other property. He never had any other property. Was he unhappy? He was steeped in bliss, infinite bliss coming from within. So 522 says, Natesha Ramate Buddha. Buddha means a wise person who has buddhi, buddhiman. A really thinking person who can think deeply in these matters. Does not hanker for worldly happiness, does not hanker for the property, money, fame, etc. He goes within and finds infinite joy. Such a person is a Sita Prajna. So two qualities are mentioned in the verse number 55. First one is Prajahati yada kaman, sarvan kaman, madhogatan kaman. When a person can conquer all the desires arising in the mind, one quality, and not when a desire comes, we should not impulsively jump to fulfill the desire without thinking about the consequences. We should think about the consequences. If I fulfill the desire, how much happiness it will give for how long, and what are the consequences? Does it cause an inconvenience to other people? Does it cause an inconvenience to animals and plants and nature? And how long it will last, and what is the price I have to pay? All these questions we have to consider before fulfilling a desire. If you think about all those things, then we discover that desire is not worth fulfilling. Such a person who has conquered all the desires, they are not unhappy, they are infinitely joyful. Their joy cannot be described, but without any outside object. That secret they know, that we have to learn. Atmanyeva Atmana Tushta, second quality. A person who is found infinite joy within the self, Atman, does not seek for fleeting happiness in the outside world and objects and experiences and other things. Such a person is a Sita Prajna. Two qualities are mentioned here. These topics of happiness and desire will come again in more detail. We'll revert to them as they come. In verse number 56, it has several qualities. Equanimity and freedom from anger, attachment, and etc. We'll study that. Verse number 56. Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha sukeshu vigataspraha vitaraga bhaya krodha stitadhir muniruchyate. Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha sukeshu vigataspraha vitaraga bhaya krodha stitadhir muniruchyate. Many qualities are mentioned in this verse 56 of Sita Prajna. First one is very important. First line, Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha. Dukkha means any kind of suffering. Any kind of dukkha suffering. Can be health problem, financial problem, job problem, relationship problem, family problem, children problem, any other problem. All dukkha, they all cause dukkha, bring unhappiness to us. When such a dukkha, unhappiness occurs in life, which is very common, everybody knows there is dukkha in life. Most people know from experience that they have to suffer in life for various reasons. Some kind of suffering or other is inevitable in life, that we know from experience. When such a suffering comes, dukkeshu, in dukkha, what does the Siddha Prajna do? Anudignamana. Udvega means excitement, turbulence in the mind, disturbance in the mind. Anudignamana means his mind remains absolutely undisturbed, calm and perturbed. That's a very difficult quality to acquire, but very important. We always have to strive to remain calm in difficult times. When sukha comes, happiness comes, we have no problem dealing with that. That also can be a problem. That comes in the second part of the first line. First, we shall deal with dukkha. Dealing with sukha is not a big problem. Dealing with dukkha is a difficult problem in human life, because we all face dukkha of some type or other at some time or other. So what we should do when we encounter unhappiness, problem, suffering in our lives? Siddha Prajna, what does it do? Dukkheshu, in dukkha, anudignamana, remains absolutely calm. Udvega means disturbance in the mind, agitation, becoming angry, depressed, and bitter. When dukkha comes, those reactions are not healthy reactions. We should remain calm and face the problem calmly. Earlier, you remember Swami Vivekananda, he was chosen by monkeys, and one monk told him to face the brute. So when the brute of suffering comes in life, monkeys chase us, we have to not run away from the problem. It will not solve the problem. It will only become a bigger problem if we run away from it. We have to look at the problem calmly and face it and see how it can be solved. And all this facing the problem, whatever kind of problem it may be in our life, facing it calmly without becoming upset or angry or disturbed, is a very important quality. Siddha Prajna does that one. When dukkha comes, Siddha Prajna remains calm. It does not become upset. He will face it. He will do what is necessary. If you become angry, upset, and yell and scream when something goes wrong, then you are only compounding the problem. You are not solving the problem. You are making it a bigger problem. So the suggestion here is to emulate a Siddha Prajna. Siddha Prajna remains calm. First of all, he remains calm, does not become disturbed. Let me see what kind of problem it is. Let me look at it squarely. Then he will do what is necessary. But does all of this without becoming upset. Anudignamana, that's the key to there. Dukkeshu anudignamana. When dukkha comes, suffering comes, one should remain calm, just like Siddha Prajna. When sukha comes, then also it is possible to be too much elated, exalted, and celebrate in an exuberant way. That also should not be done. Then also we should calm. We should remain calm. Sukheshu vigata spraha. Spraha means desire. Vigata spraha means we should become free from desire in sukha. We should not assume that the sukha will continue. Same thing about dukkha. They are come and go. Nothing is permanent. Sukha comes, for some time it will give us happiness, but it will not be permanent. We should not assume it is going to be. If you are happy today, it does not mean you will be happy forever, the rest of the life. Very soon, unexpectedly, suddenly things will change. What was happiness turns into a very unhappy situation. In the twinkling of an eye, things can change. Same thing about dukkha. If dukkha comes, we should not worry that it is going to be there permanently. No, dukkha is permanent. It is there, it will stay for some time. Then if we deal with it calmly, then it will go away. And some other dukkha may come, but this dukkha, everything is temporary, everything is fleeting. Sukha dukkha are fleeting. So we should take consolation in the fact that they are not permanent. Dukkeshu anudignamanaha. Sukheshu vigata spraha. Remaining calm, free from desire, free from attachment to the sukha. Sukha, we should not become attached to it because it may leave at any time. Sukheshu vigata spraha. These are two qualities. That means, to summarize the first line of Shloka 56, What Sri Krishna is saying is, one should remain calm under all circumstances, in pain and pleasure, in gain and loss, in praise and blame, in success and failure. These are all inevitable experiences in everybody's life. Whether this happens, that happens, good happens or bad happens, I should remain calm and face the problem if there is a problem. Then I can deal with the problem creatively if I am calm. If I am upset and the problem comes, then my ability to deal with the problem will not be there. I will not be able to think calmly and creatively and deal with the problem in the right way when I become upset. If I remain calm, I can look at the problem and see what is to be done. Nicely, we can deal with the problem. So the summary of the first line is to remain equanimous. The quality of equanimity will come many times in the Gita later. We'll revert to this topic of equanimity several times. In sukha and dukkha, in pain and pleasure, we should remain calm and equanimous. This has already come once, you know that one. The topic of equanimity in sukha and dukkha has already come in the second chapter. You remember this sloka? 38, 38, yes. Second chapter sloka 38. This topic of equanimity in pain and pleasure already come. There Sri Krishna said, verse 38 in chapter 2, we studied that one some time ago. Should not forget the verses we already studied. We should keep them in mind. So I'll periodically go back to previous verses. 238, Sri Krishna says, Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayau yato yaddaya yajyasva naivam parapamavapsyasi. This first line is second in the verse 38 in second chapter. Deals with the same quality that Sita Prajna has. Sukha dukkhe same kritva. Sama means equal. We should treat equally sukha and dukkha. Labha alabha same kritva. Labha means gain or profit. Alabha means loss. Sometimes we gain, sometimes we lose. Sometimes you are happy sukha, sometimes you are unhappy dukkha. In sukha and dukkha, in labha and alabha, in gain and loss, profit and loss, we should consider them equally. We should not remain upset. Third one is Jaya Ajayo. In success and failure. Jaya means success. Sometimes when you do some work, we succeed in that work. Result will be good. Sometimes, even though we have done our very best, result will not be good for other causes. Our part is no lack. I have done my very best in this work. But still I did not succeed because of some other external factor over which I had no control. For example, somebody else's work affects my work. In an office situation, in a team situation, I maybe do the best work in the team. I'm a member of a team. Other people are working in the same project. In family also, in workplace also. Several people have to work together. There's nothing, very few that we can do alone by ourselves. If other people don't do their work properly, that affects the result of my work also. So I have done my best. In such a case, I should say, I've done my best. The failure is not because of anything that I did not do properly. Failure is because of somebody else's work or some other factor like weather, etc., over which I had no control. Therefore, I will remain calm in failure also. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayav tato vidyajyasva. So the quality of equanimity has already come in verse 38 in second chapter. It has come a second time in verse 56 when describing the qualities of a Chitta Prajna. Chitta Prajna means always calm regardless of what happens, good or bad, pain or pleasure, gain or loss, praise or blame. Sometimes people praise us, sometimes people blame us. We should not become too much elated when people praise, and we should not become too much upset when people blame. We should take everything in stride and remain calm under all circumstances. That is the quality of Chitta Prajna. Always calm, no matter what happens. We should never lose balance and become upset, no matter what. That quality we all have to cultivate. And everyday life gives us opportunity to exercise this quality. Every day something happens that we like or don't like, then everything should, all experience must be welcomed as an opportunity to practice detachment and equanimity. This topic of equanimity comes in several chapters. I will mention only one. I don't give too many cross references at this time because it will be confusing. One cross reference I will give. Topic of equanimity. Chapter 5, verse number 20. It will come to that, but I will just give an advance notice of chapter 5, verse 20, where the topic of equanimity has come. Several times it comes. There Sri Krishna repeats the same instruction. 5:20. There he says, Na prahrushet priyam prapya, nodvijet prapya cha priyam, sthira buddhira sammudo, brahmavid brahmani sthitaha. First line. Na prahrushet priyam prapya. Priyam prapya. Priyam means something pleasant that we like. Prapya, when something pleasant that happens to us, then na prahrushet, we should not become too much elated and arrogant. Oh, I am successful. Oh, this good thing has happened. If we become too much elated, then soon things may change. So we should take it in stride. Okay, something good has happened. I'm thankful, grateful. This is good. Okay. Second thing is apriyam prapya. 5:20. Apriyam means something unpleasant that we don't like. Unpleasant happens. Apriyam prapya na udvijet. Udvaga means disturbance in the mind, turbulence in the mind. When something unpleasant happens, you should not become too much upset, too much elated, too much unhappy, sad, depressed, anger. We should not angry. We should not become that. We should remain calm. Whether good or bad, pain or pleasure, whatever life brings, I am going to remain unaffected. I will remain calm and I will do what is necessary to be done. That should be our attitude. That's the quality we have to learn from him. Sita Prajna. That is in the verse number 56, first line. The second line, 56 sloka, has 3 more qualities. Vitaraga bhaya krodha sthita dher muniruchyate. Vita means one has conquered, Vijaya. Raga means attachment. Very difficult, very important to remain unattached to things. We easily become attached to our own body. First of all, attachment to the body is very strong. We become attached to other people, relatives and friends and children, etc. We become attached to the work that we do. We become attached to the place where we live. We become attached to the things that we possess, car, etc., money, etc. Become attached to everything. The world is a very sticky place. No matter which way you turn, you become attached. See, Ramakrishna gives an example how attachment is inevitable. If you go to a dark room where there is no light and the walls and everything is coated with a fine film of soot, no matter how careful you are, some of that will stick to your body because it is dark. The world is like that. No matter how careful you are, you become attached to the things that we use. My book, my money, my property, my child, my body, my house, my work, and the result of my work, to become attached to everything. So first thing is, Sita Prajna does is becomes free from attachment. Nothing is mine. How to become free from attachment? That is an important topic. How to is not mentioned here. It only says Sita Prajna becomes free from attachment. Vita Raga is free from attachment. How can we become free from attachment? The topic also will come later many times, but I will mention briefly. How to become attachment to our property? One thing, we become attachment to our house, my money, my car. Like this, we become attached to the property we possess. How to become attached, free from attachment to property? Very easy. A devotee can easily do it. Devotee says, all these things that I have, my house, my money, my job, my property, my clothing, whatever I have, all belongs to the Lord. I am only, they are in my name, but only I am a temporary custodian, temporary manager, temporarily I am in charge of these things. Today they are mine, tomorrow they will belong to somebody else. This house which I call my house today, I will live in this house, it's in my name, I'm the owner in my name, but it's not permanent. Before I come to this house, this was not my house, I was in some other place. After some time I leave this house will be there, but I have to leave. Then somebody else will take over the house, and this no longer mine. Temporarily it is mine. I'm only a temporarily in charge of this house. I'm a temporary custodian, caretaker of this house. Similarly, I'm a temporarily in charge of this money that is in my name in the bank. Temporarily in charge of the other car, etc., which I possess. All belong to him. I'm not the owner, I'm the custodian, manager, servant, caretaker of these things. Sooner or later, the owner will claim it back. It will go back to him. Then I should say, I have done my part when I was the owner. When it was in my charge, I took good care of all these things. I took good care of the house, property, car, money, etc. Now the owner has taken it back. I'm free from that obligation. I have done my part. I'm free. With a great sense of relief and gratitude, we should part with, when things part from us, when the time comes to part from things, we should feel a sense of relief that I have done my part, taken good care of them, done my duty by them, and the owner has taken it back, and I'm free from the obligation. I'm free. That should be your attitude towards property. No, we should not say, mine, it will always be with me, I will always be the owner. We should not think like that. That's not going to be the case. How to become free from attachment to property? One. Second thing is how to become attachment to work. This is my work. I have to do this work. This somebody else. I'm not going to do that. Somebody else's work. Not my work. Like this, you become attached to work. That is also not very healthy attitude. We should say, this work is an opportunity for me. It has come to me by the grace of God. By the grace of God only we get work to do. Ability to, last time we saw, ability to do work and opportunity to do work are two precious gifts. God has given us two things. Ability to do some work, whatever work we do. Second thing is, He has given the opportunity to do the work. Some people don't have one or the other. Some people are able, but they don't have the work to do. Some people have work to do, but they cannot do. They are unable for some reason, disability. Both of us have been given to us. Therefore, these are gifts from God. Only for some time I am doing this work. Tomorrow my work may change. It may go to somebody else. What I call my work today will become somebody else's work tomorrow. And what is somebody else's work yesterday was my work today is nothing permanent about it. If it is in my duty, I will do it properly as worship, as offering, and there my responsibility ends. That way, attachment from work has to be given up. It's an opportunity to serve the Lord. All worship is to be done as service, as offering, as worship. And as long as I am required to do it, I will do it properly with this attitude of a servant, as a devotee. Then I will offer it to Him. And then once it is offered, I am free from attachment to work and its result. That way, we have to become free from attachment to karma phala. The other thing is how to become attachment to people in our lives. We become attached to our parents, our siblings, spouse, our children, grandchildren, friends, relatives. We become attached to all of these people. How to become free from attachment to people in our lives? There also we have to think in this way. All these people are children of God. They are sent to play some part in my life by the Lord Himself. The people who come into our life in different capacities, as relatives, as friends, as co-workers, as spouse, as children, siblings, they are all here in my life for some time to play a part, to enrich my life, and then the separation will come. No matter how close we are related, separation will come sooner or later. Either I will be there, they will go away, or they will be there and I have to leave. So I should be ready for that separation. As long as they are in my life, they are playing a part in my life, I should serve them, love them, and do my duty by them. But I should know sooner or later they and I will have to depart. The separation is going to come inevitably. One way or the separation will come. I will be there, they will leave, or they will be there, I will have to leave. So when separation comes, I should be able to say, I've done my part by them, I've done my duty to them, I loved them when they were in my life. Whatever I could do, I did to take care of them, help them. I showed my love, and now the time has come to leave, and I have done my part. Thank you for Lord for sending these people to my life to enrich my life. They have played their part. I have played my part. The time has come. Now I am going back to you. My only relative is God. Other relatives are temporary. Today they are relatives. Tomorrow they may not be there. Yesterday they were not there. In this way, Vita Raga, first quality, in the second line, we should become free from attachment to everything. Second quality is Vita Bhaya. Bhaya means fear. The topic of fear also is a very profound topic, and it takes time to discuss the origin of fear. Why fear arises in the first place? Fear of many kinds. We are afraid of so many different things. You are afraid of becoming sick. We are afraid of losing our job. We are afraid of losing the property. We are afraid that something may go wrong in our work life. We are afraid that this may happen, that may happen. So many kinds of fears are there. Why fear comes in the first place? What is the origin of fear? If we know the origin of fear, then we can know how to deal with fear easily. So here, Siddha Prajna has become free from fear. What is fear? How does it arise in our minds? Why fear starts? And then how to overcome fear. These are all the topics that we will discuss. It's almost time, and 2-3 minutes are remaining. I want to, we'll come back to the topic of fear next time, next week. And then Krodha, anger, fear and anger, 2 more topics are remaining in this verse. I will take time to discuss those in detail. Now, if you have 1 or 2 questions before we close, you can ask the questions. Or you can send the questions by email or call. I'll be happy to answer.
If that samadhi or that, that Ishar darshan, then we cannot live in our body anymore for the people like us. So there is a difference in those 2 stages, right? Can you please explain?
Yes. As you said, Sri Ramakrishna has said in the gospel that if an ordinary person struggles very hard and reaches Nirvikalpa Samadhi, then that is the end of that earthly life. That means the purpose for which he was born has been fulfilled, and there is no longer need for the body to continue. If the prarabdha has been worked out, then he will leave the body, will not come back ordinarily. But there are special cases where people who reach Samadhi come back from Samadhi if their mission is to serve the other people, Loka Sangraha. Very few people like that who reach Samadhi will come back to the normal plane. And when they come back, they don't have any desire, nothing, no selfishness. They don't have to do anything for themselves. All their life is dedicated to helping other people, Loka Sangraha. Those people are very few, very rare. So the Siddha Prajna is one who may not necessarily have reached Samadhi, but he has reached self-awareness. He knows that he is not the body mind, he is the Atman within. He remains unaffected by whatever happens in life. Remains free from anger, jealousy, sadness and sorrow. He remains absolutely calm under all circumstances. And at the same time, he remains active. He does not become inactive. Whatever is required to be done, that will continue to do. Such a person is a Siddha Prajna.
Thank you.
Siddha Prajna we can all become. Samadhi is a different matter. Some will reach, and whether they come back from Samadhi or not, it is not known. So,
Pranam Swamiji.
Anybody else?
Pranam Swamiji, Indranil here. I have a question. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. Somebody is speaking.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Who is speaking?
Yeah, this is Indranil.
Indranil, yes. Yeah.
So in this sloka 55, it tells like get done with all desires. What about good desires you mentioned? Like
Yeah. There are two stages. For people like us who are not Chitta Prajnas, first stage is to give up all bad desires, first of all, adharmic desires. As he says in verse 11 in chapter 7. We can give up those things. We can fulfill good desires. Eventually, Chitta Prajna gives up all desires because there is, by fulfilling desires, some whatever happiness comes, he is already enjoying infinite happiness, so there is no need for him to fulfill other desires. The stage of becoming Chitta Prajna is much higher. But before that, as seekers of state of Chitta Prajna, first stage is to give up all bad desires. Anything that is unhealthy.
Hello?
If I fulfill the desire, mind will become only more restless. The shortness, happiness comes very short-lived and the price is very high. Those desires we have to give up. And good desires we can fulfill. Desire to become a better person, desire to acquire more knowledge, desire to become more, acquire more devotion to God, serving other people. These are good desires we can follow for some time.
thank you,
Two
Swamiji.
stages. Yeah, 2 stages.
Got it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sushma ji, please tell me your question.
Yeah, okay. I've been trying to get unmuted and never it was allowing me what to do. Is it okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, Swamiji, I wanted to ask you this, that talking about desires, end of desire is important because it can lead to liberation, right? But then one would have the desire to be able to end desires, right? Is that okay?
Desire for liberation?
Can I have the desire to be able to end all my desires?
Yes, that's a good desire.
That's
Become
okay.
free from desires.
That is okay, right?
Become free from all desires is a good desire.
Okay, okay, so that is allowed.
That's
Now
another
another thing is that they say end of desire means end of creation, because when he desired, creation began. What does it mean?
No, we are not.
That means he can desire?
God does not create, do creation for fulfilling a desire. He has no particular motivation to create do the creation. We are not in that situation. Our question is, Chitta Prajna is an individual who has become free from all desires. How can we become free from desires? Because what God does, that we cannot understand. That's not the topic.
I see.
Chitta Prajna, as an individual, as one person, as me, how can I become free from desires? To become free from desires, I have to know the origin of desire, why desire comes in the first place, and what kind of desires are there which can be fulfilled, which should not be fulfilled, how to distinguish between them. All these things will come in the verse number 62, 63. So we'll discuss more about desires when we come to 62, 63. We're in 56. You will come again. We'll discuss that.
Okay, and one little more question, Swamiji. There are certain shlokas that you say in your mind when you do something. As for example, before eating, you had told us you can say, oh, say no, avtu, but can you say, there's a shloka in chapter 15, shloka 14, which says, Vaishvanaro bhutva praninam deham ashritas. Pachami annam. That shloka. Can one say that in mind before eating food?
People say that one. 14, chapter 15.
Chapter 15, shloka 14.
Vaishvanaro bhutva praninam deham ashritah pranapanasama pacham chaturvidham. The Lord himself is present in all bodies of all the living beings as the Vaishvanara, and it is he who digests all the food that we eat.
So can we say that in our mind before eating food?
Yes, you can see, you have to say that. You can say that.
Okay. That's what
so any food that is put into our mouth, goes to reach him. He were offering ahuti. It's like a yajna. Eating is a yajna. That comes in chapter 4, verse 24. Pramarpanam Brahmavi. Eating is an act of yajna. How is it an act of yajna? Because he is present as Vaishwanara Agni in our bodies. In the bodies of Vanyavasam plants too, he is present as Vaishwanara. And when some food is put into our mouth, I am offering ahuti to that Vaishwanara fire. So it's an act of yajna, an act of worship. In that sense, if we eat, eating is done properly. So some prayer, Vaishwanara Bhutva, you can say the 14th verse of 15th chapter. You can say 424 Brahmarpanam, or you can say Gayatri Mantra, you can say any or Lord's Prayer Christians say. Whatever mantra, some mantra has to be, prayer has to be chanted before eating the food.
Yeah, before eating. And while eating, if that shloka keeps coming to your mind, can you go on saying it? Is it okay?
Yeah, you can say that one. There's no restriction about saying shloka. You can say it at any time, any place, under any conditions.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay, let us stop here now. I shall say the closing prayer. And if you have more questions, please let me know. Send me email or call me. I'll be happy to answer. Now, closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah. Sarve Santu Niramayah. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from afflictions. May all realize what is noble and auspicious. May no one be subject to misery. Om, peace. Peace be within us all. Adhyatmika Shanti. Peace and harmony be amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. Peace be everywhere in nature. Adi Dayika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all and stay well, and namaskars to all of you.